Johnson & Johnson has finally agreed to pay nearly $9 billion after first attempting to dodge any liability over claims that the company's famous talc baby powder contains cancer-causing asbestos, and the company knew about it.
I mean, there was this documentary on Netflix about like health and beauty business, and they talked about Johnson & Johnson baby powder and how they, my mom, we used that when I was little. It causes cervical cancer. Yeah. That's what they're saying. I call my mom and I go, hey, if you have Johnson & Johnson baby powder, don't use it. She goes, no, it causes cancer. I know that. Like, it just became not like, it was a thing that was a family company that was sold to everyone. And then when they found out it caused cancer, they started marketing it to poorer communities. And so
when they found out it causes cancer, they started marketing to people.
They started putting it in like black and brown communities.
Really?
Yeah, this was in the documentary.
The self-proclaimed family company is more of a global conglomerate than a company and is currently valued at around $425 billion. Originally, following thousands of claims that the baby powder was cancer-causing, Johnson & Johnson offered to pay $2 billion in restitution. But then, it tried to pull a move that's known as the Texas Two-Step. The Texas Two-Step is a legal maneuver in which the company will split itself in two, basically creating a shell company and then offload its liabilities onto the shell company. Then the shell company files for bankruptcy. That stay of litigation, by the way, applies to the shell company and the parent company, and it means that victims aren't allowed to pursue legal action against either. In this case, Johnson & Johnson created the subsidiary LTL Management. Now, as claims came in from people claiming that the Johnson & Johnson baby powder was causing cancer, the company stuck to the script. There was no asbestos in its talcum powder, it said. Later, it said that if there was any asbestos in its talcum powder, it was a negligible amount. But with the lawsuits piling up, internal documents were discovered that showed that Johnson & Johnson had been aware that its products contained asbestos for decades, and the company not only lied about it and outwardly denied it, but it continued to market and sell its product as being safe for babies. So in 2018, 22 women in Missouri were awarded $2 billion in court in a suit against Johnson & Johnson. So 22 plaintiffs were awarded $2 billion. As of today, there are over 60,000 lawsuits against the company, but thanks to the Texas Two-Step, the company has essentially been shielded from litigation and legal liability. Instead, it created a trust fund of $2 billion that it was planning on settling its 60,000 plus claims with. The same amount of money that settled those 22 claims in Missouri was now how much they were allocating for over 60,000 claims. Again, Johnson & Johnson today is worth over $425 billion, but Johnson & Johnson isn't liable for those claims. LTL Management is, and LTL Management is conveniently bankrupt. After the $2 billion settlement was appealed, the company has now agreed to pay $8.9 billion, but while that is significantly more than just $2 billion, the math still doesn't quite check out. A Houston-based attorney representing thousands of plaintiffs said of the deal, quote, "This sham deal does not even pay for most victims' medical bills." Johnson & Johnson, for its part, is maintaining that its products are safe and alleges that the correlation between usage of its products and cancer is weak. And there could potentially be another appeal in this, but as of now, this is where the case stands. But without getting into the usual rant against capitalism and corporate greed, you have to wonder why something like this is allowed to happen. Why is the Texas Two-Step allowed to be a thing? Fundamentally, it makes no sense whatsoever, to the point that it attempts to use our own legal system to negate itself. In this case, thanks to appeals courts, the justice system did overall do its job and will hopefully continue to do so in terms of seeking justice for the victims. Some could call this a victory for our justice system and proof that the system does in fact work. But so much of law and legality and business and politics just feels like a board game. You're given a specific set of rules and you're expected to win, whatever winning looks like, by playing your hand to the best of your ability within the parameters of the game. The difference is that when playing a board game, there's always that one friend who's ready to call people out for cheating, or in sports, there's a referee. That one friend or referee should be our legal system, ensuring that everyone plays by the same set of rules, but in the real world, the cheater has its own friend, a bigger and meaner friend with more money to push back against the cheating allegations, however true they may or may not be. And yes, everyone has the right to defend themselves. And yes, the law leaves a lot of room for nuance and interpretation. But the fact is, if you or I were accused of a crime, we wouldn't be able to magically clone ourselves and then say, oh, she did it. She'll serve the time. She'll pay the fines. But don't expect much from her because she's broke. I didn't give her any money. We wouldn't then be allowed to continue living our lives as before, doing the same criminal thing as before, only this time without fear of retribution or liability. The system only works in theory, just like the real world doesn't function like Monopoly or Settlers of Catan, however analogous or metaphorical these games may be. That said, Johnson & Johnson has stopped selling its baby powder in North America, and it will stop selling it worldwide this year. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like and subscribe, and be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks.